What's up, traders? Matt from the Trade Brigade here doing a technical analysis on ticker symbol GNOG for Golden Nugget Online Gaming. Now, on the left-hand side, we are looking at the daily time frame, and on the right-hand side, the 30-minute intraday time frame. It would sort of behoove me to not mention that we are talking about this candlestick right here. Absolutely massive gap up today on some sort of news about a deal with DraftKings. So keep in mind that we are looking at a stock, a ticker here, that's going to carry massive amounts of headline risk. Anything bad that comes out about the deal, if the deal is off for some reason, it's sort of in the toilet, right? This trade is completely bust. It's probably going lower, but the opposite holds true as well, right? So that's the risk you take when you're dealing with something that's in the headlines. If something good comes out, obviously we're going to be moving much higher from here. So that being said, what are we seeing in terms of obvious areas from the daily time frame in terms of support and resistance? I mean, no surprise kind of where we topped out in today's session after the massive gap up, simply because of prior resistance, some wicks in here, prior support, chop more recently here, an area of resistance as well. So 1867, there, should definitely be on your radar. If we start to trade above it, just look for higher targets. If we remain underneath, I mean, ideally, we're looking at consolidation in this range, but if it can't get out of its own way, then potentially look for a little bit of rollover. That would coincide with something like headlines drying up and volume completely tapering off, right? That's the next thing I want to mention before we dive in and get a little bit more granular here, is that volume, whenever you see it on a massive breakout like this from something that was in a very clear downtrend, volume needs to stay elevated. Otherwise, we run the risk of, again, just sort of breaking under today's low and just slowly grinding to the downside, being caught in something that looks like this if our volume completely evaporates. So please, please, please keep an eye on that as well. Downside levels, just, because we are talking about that, I'm not saying it's going to go lower, but I want you to be prepared should something nasty come out. Obviously, today's low is in play. Underneath us, we have a massive gap to fill all the way down towards $12.37. I'm not saying that we do that all in one go, but rather, look for some signposts along the way. The first area of support you would want to see hold underneath us is 17 the whole dollar, and after that, I'd argue it's right here around 15.38, simply because if we're testing the 200 SMA from the top side down this time, it should act as support. And for those of you who are not familiar, the green line here is the 200 simple period moving average, and if it coincides with 15.38 prior area of resistance, it would make sense to me that this would be a potential area for a reversal. The last thing I'll say about downside levels, and we'll talk about the bull case here, is that if we start to trade underneath 15.38, it's kind of game over, simply because if we think about this and break it in half, right, something like that, if you start trading underneath 50% of any given gap range, it's very likely that you come all the way in and fill that gap completely. So keep that in mind if we start to violate the 200 SMA and 15.38, just the roughly 50% of the gap underneath us. Now, to the upside, we're kind of in uncharted territories in recent history. Just looking left on this chart, you can clearly see there was a pivot high around here, $20, and then after that, we'll walk one more up here towards $21.41. Now, focusing on the 30-minute time frame, I just want to discuss kind of the price action that occurred. Is it bullish? Is it bearish? I would argue that it's fairly bullish, and here is why, right? We have this sort of cup and handle-ish type pattern forming, certainly a bull flag into the end of the day. Nice run higher here, and then pulling back in the last 30-minute session. Really no concern, especially given the context of a massive gap up. So that being said, what are some areas to pay attention to from today's trading session? I would argue here, if I could get that click in there at 1842, simply because we had some candle opens, a nice wick as resistance, some touches in here, and that's exactly where we bounced on the pullback today. So if we hold that, that would be a perfect case of what? A higher low forming from this base in here, where we had another set of higher lows from the major anchor low, which was, of course, the wick low of the first 30-minute period of the day. So that being said, this is that area of prior higher lows right around 18 the whole dollar. That, that's the line in the sand. If that starts to get taken out, it's kind of like, I would expect more consolidation, more sideways activity, potentially even a little bit more downside, but holding on to 1842 and holding on to 18 would strike me as more bullish, right? We can do something like this, then maybe you just adjust your expectations. Here's your big L, and this could potentially be some sort of higher low. Then we would need to set a new higher high to continue this 30-minute uptrend. So it's not the end of the world here. We are obviously massive gap up, a lot of eyes on this stock, bullish catalyst. We're looking for more upside, but please be prepared with everything we've discussed in today's video. So if you enjoyed the video or learned anything new, let me know down below in the comments section or by simply leaving the video a thumbs up. Don't forget our main channel is linked down below in the description. And all of that being said, we wish you a green trading week.